At 12 o'clock, we got Missouri, who's 4-5. Traveling to number 5, Tennessee, who is 8-1. Tennessee's favored by 20.5 points on CBS. Brady Cook for Missouri went 1 of 63 at 248, then for 1,795 yards, 6 touchdowns, 7 interceptions this year. Cody Schrader on the ground has had 111 carries for 509 yards and 5 touchdowns, and Dominic Lovett has had 45 catches for 659 yards and 2 touchdowns. Hendon Hooker through the air has gone 179 at 252, thrown for 2,533 yards, 21 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Jalen Wright on the ground has had 113 carries for 547 yards and 6 touchdowns, and Jalen Hyatt through the air has done nothing short of had a miracle season with 51 catches for 970 yards and 14 touchdowns. Missouri and Tennessee are actually tied 5-5 all time. Last 3 games have gone to Tennessee, though, from 2019 to 2021. Last time Missouri won at Tennessee was in 2018. So I think what's going to be... Both these teams are coming off tough weeks, right? You look at Tennessee, obviously the drubbing by Georgia, that's a rough one, right? It's one where the path to the playoffs becomes so much harder for you now, right? Because, I mean, not going to your championship game is going to make it tough for you to make the playoffs. I just think that's a logical conclusion. Only one team has made it to the playoffs without winning without going to their conference championship game. That was Alabama back in a season where it was very confusing who else you were going to take. You could have taken a Wisconsin team that lost their Big Ten championship game. You could have taken an undefeated UCF team, but they ended up going with Bama, who didn't make their championship game. So it's going to be tough to make the playoffs without even going to your championship game. It rarely happens if you're Tennessee, and that's a rough one for you, right? Because sadly enough for you, there are a lot of contenders out there if you're a Tennessee fan, right? The loss to Georgia sucks because it probably ensures Georgia's spot in the playoffs. But it's not just that you have to worry about. In the Big Ten, Ohio State or Michigan is likely going to go regardless. They're going to go and probably win their championship game up there. So that's 2 spots out of the way. TCU, even if they lose a game down the stretch, if they win the Big 12 championship game, they're probably in. And then you just have to hope Clemson and UNC are still alive in the ACC, although UNC is supremely underrated. And Oregon is looking phenomenal in the Pac-12, and you have to assume that if they win the Pac-12 with their only loss being to Georgia at the very beginning of the year, Oregon is a playoff team as well. So it's like the path to the playoffs gets a lot harder for Tennessee, and you just have to hope for other teams to lose. And that's what you're mainly going to be focusing on this weekend. Obviously, you're going to watch your game. But if you could get some upsets this weekend, I think a lot of Tennessee fans would appreciate it. Missouri's coming off a week that was rough for them as well. Missouri's coming off a game where they were that close against Kentucky. A game where you were down by 4, and they snapped the ball way over the punter's head. It looked like you were going to get the ball at the 1-yard line with a chance to win it, and then the punter gets the ball off. You rough the punter, and it gives them an automatic first down. And in a game where it's like, that was the worst case scenario. It was just like, it went from best case scenario to worst case scenario like that if you're Missouri. And Missouri is one of the best 4-5 teams in the country. You look at their losses, they lost to Georgia by 4, a game they should have had. The Kansas State game was a drubbing, but Kansas State is a pretty good football team. They barely lost to Florida. They barely lose to Kentucky. That's 4 of their losses. Shoot, I think they beat South Carolina. I mean, like, there's been some rough ones if you're Missouri. There's been some ones that you could have had and you let slip out of your fingers, and it really sucks if you're a Missouri fan, but it would have been really interesting if you could have pulled off some of those upsets. Mizzou is a good football team. I will stick by that. I think they're a good football team that's had some bad luck recently. I think Tennessee's a better football team, and I think this is going to be a big bounce-back game for Tennessee. The Vols want some revenge after losing so heartbreakingly. Like, absolute domination they got against Georgia. I think this is a chance for them to get a bounce-back game. I think they win it, but I do think Missouri covers on the road.